And if I had to be another person to stand up, if I think, after really going through this, and looking at the files and looking at the case, if I really feel that Karen Reed didn't do this and I have to be a voice that stands up and helps, I will.
We are expecting to learn more about the allegations against the girlfriend of a Boston police officer who was found unresponsive in the snow Saturday morning. I-Team sources say Karen Reed was in a relationship with John O'Keefe. She's facing charges including motor vehicle homicide and manslaughter.
We're the only ones fighting for the truth of what happened to John O'Keefe. And me and my family and my attorneys and my team have marshaled every resource to get to the truth. Just feels like no one else wants it.
Now, just be clear, you didn't do it.
We know who did it, Steve. We know. And we know who spearheaded this cover-up. You all know.
And no, she didn't do it. No, she didn't do it. This is an innocent woman. She didn't do it.
I tried to save his life.
Yeah.
I tried to save his life at 6 in the morning. I was covered in his blood. I was the only one trying to save his life.
Why'd you admit to it?
She didn't admit to it. She didn't admit to anything close to that. Nothing close to that. And you should know that.
That was like 3 or 4 times she admitted to it.
No, she didn't.
That's not true.
She asked a question. She asked a question, which is very different. She didn't admit to anything.
I'm going to tell you one thing. Karen Reed's not going to fold. Karen Reed's not going to give up. Defense team's not going to quit. The Free Karen Reed movement is going to continue. We will continue to raise funds for her. We will continue to do standouts across Massachusetts, across the nation, across the world to let everybody know what's going on here in the state of Massachusetts, the corruption. And we will continue to get the word out there. Believe me. Believe me. Whoa, what's going on, everybody? Good evening. Welcome back into the live show here on LTL Media. This is Let's Talk Live. And I had the opportunity to come live a little bit early here. I got to the studio so quick after work, and I said, well, why not? Let's start a little bit earlier here tonight. And I want to welcome everybody in. So come on in, smash the like button. My name is Brian, and a lot of people call me LTL. Some people call me BLT. And some people have some other choice words named for me. But it is what it is. And we're going to hang out and have some fun tonight. And what I wanted to do here on the show is kind of profile Hank, mobster, Hanky Panky Brennan, and get kind of a feel for who this guy is. And I kind of put a collection together of video clips. And I thought that we could go through all of that this evening and talk a little bit about who Hank Brennan is as an attorney. I think he's whiny. He's basically lost the entire time that he's been involved in the Karen Reed case. All of his motions have been denied. Obviously, he's been trying to keep all of the expert witnesses out on Karen's team. He's now attacking ARCA, filing all these other different motions to suppress evidence. All of a sudden, you know, we have more discovery that's coming out, multiple versions of Sallyport videos. We find out about the Brian Higgins video at 1:30 a.m. at Canton PD when he's on his phone talking to someone. Who are you talking to? So very interesting stuff. And tonight, again, I want to go over Hank Brennan. Yes, Hank is slimy. Slimy all the way, like a slithering slug. And he is in with the Bulger. The Whitey Bulger, and we're going to hear about all of that. And, you know, he's in my opinion, he's a swarmy thorn in your side type of guy that is, losing. He's literally losing. I think he's losing worse than Lally. And if you look at this, everything is really resting on his shoulders because I think he's putting every effort and everything into this. Lally was just so passe. I'm here. He had no passion in his voice. He had no gusto in that courtroom. Just ran through the motions. But I think Hank Brennan, obviously, I think he has a lot more riding on this to get the win for the Commonwealth, tag team partner. And, he's losing. He's losing big time. And, we just had, hopefully, if he gets approved, the new addition, Mark Betterow, to the elite Karen Reed defense team. I mean, it's just unbelievable, the direction of that team, and very high-powered attorneys. I feel like Karen is in very, very good hands. And, we'll just have to see how it goes. But I want to kind of do a profile on Hank Brennan tonight. And it's very, very nice to see everybody here. Make sure to smash that like button when you come in. I still have no voice. I still have no voice. I still have nasal congestion. This has been like 5 weeks. Good stuff. Fun. Don't catch this sinus virus. It sucks. All right. Let's do this. Let's start sharing my screen here. So I went to Hank Brennan's website and I wanted to read a little bit about Hanky Panky, fucking Whitey Bulger's lawyer. So a little bio here. Hank Brennan is a highly experienced attorney with a demonstration record of successfully defending all types of criminal cases, from the common to the most complex. Attorney Brennan has effectively represented hundreds of clients and has tried and won over 100 cases, demonstrating remarkable success in the state and federal courts. His commitment to his clients, his knowledge of the law, and his extraordinary trial skills have consistently delivered positive outcomes to those navigating some of the most difficult circumstances of their lives. He brings a deep commitment to each and every case, and his clear and careful guidance has helped those who already had the experience in the legal system and who are facing their first time in court. So his areas of practice: white-collar crimes, violent crimes, sex crimes, RICO, probation violation, murder, motor vehicle crimes, internet crimes, clerk hearings, federal crimes, DUI, OUIs, drug crimes, domestic crimes, personal injury. Hank Brennan has been recognized by Super Lawyers of Massachusetts and has been named one of the top country's 100 trial lawyers by the National Trial Lawyer Association. He serves as an adjacent professor of law, teaching trial practice at Suffolk University Law School, and is a frequent lecturer to those lawyers to students in trial practice. And that is the bio. Oh, wait, let's look at recent trials. Hasn't been updated since 2016. Hanky Panky in the media. Anything, nothing. Great fucking website, by the way, pal. Great website. But, I look at this and I said, if you had a choice and you put Hank Brennan out there and David Yannetti, we'll just use the Massachusetts attorneys. Who are you picking? Who are you taking on your side to defend you? Hanky Panky or David Yannetti? I'm Yannetti all the way. Before we get into profiling, let's see. What did I want to do here? I don't know. I don't think I'm going to play that. But let's go to Hanky Panky. Hanky Panky. And let's look at his past. And what was he famous for? Whitey fucking Bulger. Whitey fucking Bulger. Update your website, Hank. All right, let's hear this interview about Hanky Panky defending Whitey fucking Bulger. Here we go.
72 witnesses. The one person they did not hear from was Whitey Bulger himself, as he declined to testify. After the verdict, defense attorney Jay Carney spoke for Bulger, saying he was pleased with the outcome.
It was important to him that the government corruption be exposed, and important to him.
And I know this is not Hank Brennan, but I'm going to laugh already. The government corruption exposed. How ironic. How ironic. The government corruption exposed. How ironic. Oh, and I hope, please give us that nugget of Hanky Panky talking about the government corruption in the Whitey Bulger case. All right. Let's go.
Whitey Bulger
Let's hear it
himself,
again. I
as
know
he
it's not
declined to
Brennan, but I'm telling
testify.
you.
After the verdict, defense attorney Jay Carney spoke for Bulger, saying he was pleased with the outcome.
It was important to him that the government corruption be exposed, and important to him that people see firsthand the deals that the government was able to make with certain people.
And now Hank Brennan, a member of Whitey Bulger's defense team, is here. Welcome, Hank Brennan.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, and by the way, happy early Valentine's Day to all of the viewers out there tonight. I hope you have something planned for you tomorrow with maybe the person you're dating, your loved one, your spouse, whoever it may be. I hope you enjoy it and have fun. I, on the other hand, I'm a free agent and I ain't dating no one right now. I'm a free agent and I ain't dating no one. I can tell you that. I'm tapped out for a little while here. But let's listen to Hanky Panky, Whitey fucking mobster Bulger.
A wild 8-10 weeks for you.
It's been a busy year and a half.
How did your client respond today? We just heard Jay Carney, your partner in this, say that he wanted to see that the government was partly culpable. But how did he respond to it's 31 out of 32 counts he was proven guilty?
James Bulger was extraordinarily content. I think the moment for him came well before the verdict. It was the effort and the demonstration in court to help try to show as much truth as we could. The idea that the government has some liability and accountability in what had happened over those decades was one of the most important.
Yeah, I got it back in a box.
One of the oddities.
I got it sent back to me in a box. Easily could have been a 30-second, 1 minute. Here's your stuff. Thank you so much. Have a good life. But I got it sent back to me in a box. Isn't that great? Sent back in a box. Welcome in, everybody. Make sure to smash the like button. I started a little early. I got off work early and could start early. I got here a lot earlier than I thought. So I said, well, why not? Let's go. All right, let's go back to Spanky.
Of this was to see Stephen Davis and other members of families of victims embracing you and Jay Carney today. And that here you were representing the man who killed their loved ones. What was that like for you to have them almost siding with you in a sense? Not that they didn't want to see the government, convict them, prosecute them and convict them, but they really credit you with bringing out the government part of the corruption.
Well, we expect our criminals to commit.
I love this interview already. They credit you with bringing out the government corruption. Oh, this is sweet. This is so sweet. I love it. Oh, here we go. Look at this. NCSHP retired. He said, hello, I'm a retired state trooper. I worked 30 years and retired honorably. I would really enjoy being on your show sometime and break down all what the police did wrong. I love that. What you need to do, NCSHP. I'm going to drop the link. I should add that in my opening. The email link will show up, sir or madam, right there. And you can reach me at letstalklivepodcast@gmail.com. And I think it would be great to do this. If you've watched my show, I have an amazing friend of mine that was with the Massachusetts State Police, Mr. Todd McGee, that has been on my show quite a few times. Maybe we can get the both of you on here and talk about that. That would be great. And let's make that happen. So thank you for reaching out. All right, let's talk about the exposing the government corruption, Mr. Hank Brennan. Oh, the irony here.
I want to see the government, convict them, prosecute them and convict them, but they really credit you with bringing out the government part of the corruption.
Well, we expect our criminals to commit crimes. That's what criminals do. We don't expect that from our law enforcement. And so having a very unique opportunity, Jake Carney and I.
Oh, man, this is so funny. I love this interview already. We're only 2 minutes in, people. I'm loving it. We don't expect our law enforcement to commit crimes. Let's back that up.
Convict them, prosecute them and convict them, but they really credit you with bringing out the government part of the corruption.
Well, you know, we expect our criminals to commit crimes. That's what criminals do. We don't expect that from our law enforcement. And so having a very unique opportunity, Jake Carney and I had the ability and the invitation to do anything we could to try to help find the truth and expose what the government had done. And the government had done a number of things that we don't expect from our government. They not only created victims, but they continued to victimize the victims by denying their responsibility.
This is the best interview. It's filled with so much irony.
We started
love
this case. The effort was at the most important part to help show the role the government played in this entire conspiracy. It was a very liberating experience as a defense attorney to be able to ask questions of witnesses, which in times could implicate our own client. And we did at many points, but also help other people. And I felt the presence of Patricia Donahue and the Donahue family and the Davises behind me every day. I didn't always see them when my back was to them, but I felt their presence. And I knew that what Jay and I, Carney, were doing had some import, not just for our client, but for the community, for particular victims.
He goes, we expect criminals to break the law. He really said that. We expect criminals. That's what criminals do. They break the law. Unbelievable, right? This is amazing. I'm so glad we're going through this.
And also for the public.
You eviscerated Stephen the Rifleman Flemmi in cross-examination. And as a result of that, you could say that you were actually responsible for the no finding in the murder of Deborah Davis, even though everybody knows he was there. He was never there. He was behind it. He, for one reason or another, wanted her dead. And yet, as I said, the family is still saying, well, you know, they want to go further with this. They want to take it to a state court, but
thank you for being here.
Well, I take issue with the suggestion that he was there, and I take issue with the fact that you suggest that they wanted him dead. The only, her dead, I'm sorry. The only person who has ever said that is Stephen Flemmi. Mm-hmm. And certainly when a person that vile decides to kill his girlfriend because she has decided she had an interest in somebody else, someone that vile with that type of reward isn't somebody who's reliable. So I absolutely suggest that's not accurate and that's not true. I think quite the opposite. That being said, in protecting and defending James Bulger at trial, I think we demonstrated through the trial that we didn't pull any punches, even if it incriminated James Bulger. Jay Carney and I, at every step, try to bring out the most reliable information. There were many witnesses, which I asked about not only the Deborah Davis murder, but also how the FBI was complicit in covering up Stephen Flemmi's misconduct by trying to hide the conversations and interviews with Olga Davis and Mickey Davis. So that was a concerted effort throughout the trial. And sometimes public and people, victims like the Davis family, need somebody to stand up for them. And that's why we rely on prosecutors. That's why we rely on our government to do that. And when they fail and someone else is there to take the void, and we had an opportunity to do that, for us, that was very meaningful.
I realized the judge wouldn't allow testimony in that you all wanted, you and Jay Carney, which was that the government offered Whitey Bulger and Stephen Flemmi, and Weeks to some extent, immunity from prosecution in order to turn evidence against La Cosa Nostra. But why not let your client testify? I know he said he wanted to in the beginning. Jay Carney said he would. Why not?
The arrangement that James Bulger had with the federal government was very different than the arrangement that Stephen Flemmi had. James Bulger was never an informant for the federal government. He was never providing information, and I hope we dispelled that through this trial. It's unfortunate that the general public doesn't see this type of trial on TV, and they can actually look at the detail and the evidence that we helped show, because unfortunately it still then becomes a matter of rumor and innuendo. James Bulger not only was prepared to take the stand, he expected to take the stand from day one, and is what he wanted to do. There is a story, a sordid story, that extends well beyond the Boston FBI to the Department of Justice to the highest ranks. And James Bulger was prepared to tell that story. It is a loss for everybody, for the jury, for the victims' families, for the community, for the public, not to have him take the stand. I expected he would have been the most convincing witness, because he'd be the one.
2013. And Matt, by the way, I got your awesome email today. Thank you so much. I hope you got my reply, and fingers crossed, buddy. So thank you. This is This is unbelievable, right? And we got more. We're going to do this. I have like 5 clips lined up, so we're going through this today. Yeah, so he defends murderers. Seems about right. This is like, mwah, it's epic. It's classic.
A witness who would not try to protect himself. I think that's reinforced.
Thank you so
by
much.
the approach Jay Carney and I took.
Check it out after the
But
show.
to have somebody take the stand just to give a confession, but not to give the entire story and protect the government makes absolutely no sense. If the government had no fear of what James Bulger would say, there'd be no reason not to let him testify to his arrangement. If immunity was so absurd, then they simply could have dispelled it in front of the jury. So although the government continually suggests that they're disappointed he didn't testify, they try to silence him at every turn in this case. And it was an extraordinary loss because talk about the idea of closure. What better closure could you have than the person who could stand before the jury and the community and say exactly what happened?
Dude, this guy is so crooked. He's crookeder than a friggin' Australian boomerang. This dude is so crooked. Crooked, crotchy crooked. Like super crotchy crooked. Oh my God. He is a crooked dude.
But fortunately, I don't think this is the last word. It's the end of this trial. But there's perhaps
Thank
other
you.
trials and there's other opportunities for James Bulger to have his voice heard. And this would have been the perfect forum, but the government wanted to deny that, and they effectively did.
In the evidence file, there were informant cards issued to Brian Halloran, Stephen Fleming, others, among them James Whitey Bulger. I think they just said James Bulger. If he wasn't an informant, why did he have a card?
I mean, real quick, I'm going to pause this, and you know, we have a little bit more people in here, and I want to say this. I think that there's more on Hank Brennan's shoulders than Adam Lally. I mean, Lally just went through the motions. This guy's trying to like put all his heart and soul into everything here, get all these motions, try to keep evidence out. I mean, he's going for it. He has so much weight on his shoulders right now. And every turn of the hat, he is failing hardcore, man. And you're going to be going up against some very high-powered attorneys. I mean, this dude is going to get shredded hard.
James Bulger didn't fill out a card and put it in a file to represent himself. It's ironic that the government says that John Conley, who was involved in such complicity and conspiracy and criminal activity, and he cannot be believed, especially with all the detailed reports he gave. But then the reports that may suggest that James Bulger gave information you should believe. There were a number of ways we try to demonstrate to this jury.
You should just clarify that, because James Bulger was saying that he actually paid them off. He gave them information, not the other way around.
They were his paid informants. It is odd that a person who was supposedly an informant is paying so many thousands of dollars to law enforcement when they're supposedly the informant. We showed a number of documents at this trial, which showed specifically information that was attributed to James Bulger that was taken from other informant files. File after file and document after document came from other files that predated files and documents in James Bulger's file. The ping sheet and the protocol that you're supposed to go through with an informant was never followed. There was never a signature. There was never a contemporaneous photograph.
Let me interrupt you, because why was this so important? That was never part of the trial. That was not an issue being decided at trial. Why was it so critical of you and your defense team to prove that he was not an informant?
Well, it's a good point. It really wasn't so important to us, but remember, the government raised the issue. From the outset of this case, they wanted to insist that he was an informant. And anytime we saw a fallacy or a fabrication, we try to check it and counter it and show that it wasn't true. Why do I suspect it was so important to the government? Well, part of it was because of reputation and pride and public relations. But think about the consequence if he wasn't an informant. Here's a person who paid an extraordinary amount of members of the FBI to get information. Inevitably, Washington, D.C. FBI was responsible for reviewing those files for determining whether or not things were viable. We had Mr. Fitzpatrick, who said he tried to shut him down, Mr. Davis, who said that the file was absolutely worthless, and Washington did nothing about it. If James Bulger was not an informant, as he was not, and simply paying the FBI, the accountability goes well beyond John Conley. And so the government certainly doesn't want to accept responsibility and accountability for letting somebody who bribed their officials to exist.
Since you brought up the issue of no cameras in the courtroom, which was incredibly frustrating to us in the news media and to the general public, tell us a little bit about working with Whitey Bulger. What was he like? How did you end up liking him? Was he somebody who was very vocal? Did he speak up on his own behalf? How did he interact with you? Just anything.
James Bulger is an extraordinarily intelligent man, and he is captivating. He's a historian.
The fucking stone cold killer. What are you talking about, bro? He's a stone cold killer. Incredibly intelligent man. He went out and killed fucking people. That's what he did. That was his business. And we're going to hear about how he's going to talk him up now. The irony in this is amazing. Let's go back a little bit.
Anything.
James Bulger is an extraordinarily intelligent man, and he is captivating. He's a historian. He was an excellent client. He educated. He gave guidance. He was a good listener. And Jay Carney and I had an extraordinary relationship with him. There were a number of things that were introduced to me before we got to trial that helped me assist him. And he was an excellent guide. I try to have an affinity for all my clients. Remember, when someone's charged, they're presumed innocent. And they come to you because they need help. And when you tell them, I'm going to treat you like a family member, you treat them like a family member. And if my brother is going to call me at 2 o'clock on a Friday night, I'm going to take the call. And James Bulger is no different than any other client that Jay and I had ever represented, and no different than a family member once you represent him.
He's 83. Was he completely cogent, lucid? Did he show any signs of illness or? None.
Yeah, he's a captivating speaker. I think he would be absolutely mesmerizing to a jury. And if he does at some point have an interview, I won't need to speak for him. He can speak for himself. But at 83 years old, he's equally, if not more, competent to speak on his behalf than I ever would be.
84 next month. All right, Hank
Yes.
Brennan, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a crazy couple months for you.
Pleasure.
All right. Well,
Oh, it does. I mean, just the irony. All right, let's get into Hank Brennan being interviewed for the Whitey Bulger document came out 2014, and that's obviously was Black Mass, Johnny Depp. And let's hear what Hanky Panky has to say about it. If you just came in, please make sure to smash the like button. Feel free to chat along with our chat here and share and subscribe. I would appreciate it. Turn on your bell notifications. All right. Let's hear a little bit more about Hanky Panky and the Whitey Bulger Black Mass starring Johnny Depp.
a year after his trial, interest in mob boss James Whitey Bulger is again ramping up. A Hollywood feature starring Johnny Depp as Bulger has been shooting in and around Boston. The two-bed, two-bath.
What did everybody think of the movie? If you liked it, put a 1 in the. If you saw it and you liked it, hit a 1. If you saw it and you didn't like it, hit a 2. I'd be curious to see how everybody felt about Black Mass.
Apartment that served as his Santa Monica hideaway is now for rent. And tomorrow, a documentary about the cold-blooded killer's trial and relationship with the FBI hits theaters. WGBH News Arts editor Jared Bowen, who covered the Bulger saga with me for years, is here with his take on it. Thanks, Jared. So, does this cover the whole span of his crime spree over decades and decades, or is it narrowly focused, the documentary?
It really uses the trial as a springboard, and partly that's why I admire this film so much, because the trial was only last year, less than a year ago, and already they've been able to encapsulate so much of what came out of that trial and Whitey Bulger's history, but it really does focus on his relationship with the government and whether or not he was an informant, and exploring the government's culpability in this case. We have a little clip of the trailer where you see just the sort of the arc of the story here.
I can't play that. I'm gonna get whacked. Let me move. Oh, it's a document. All right, this is not Black Mass.
That is currently prosecuting Whitey Bulger had some kind of corrupt relationship with Whitey Bulger.
The federal government is so desperate to try to convince people that he's an informant.
Yeah, Brennan.
Where's the Boston police? Where's the FBI? He realized I get a blank check. I can do anything I want.
So do you You hear Bulger. I heard you talk about that in this morning on the radio. What is he talking about?
This is what's really, really fascinating, especially for people who know this story and have never heard his say, and for people who are disappointed that he never took the stand. Here you see him on the phone with his attorney, and you hear this conversation. So you basically have Whitey Bulger giving his defense in cooperating with this film. And we have a sense here of him addressing the issue of whether or not he was a rat, as became the focus of this trial.
You've told me since the very first day I met you that you've never been an informant.
That's correct.
Does that mean you've never been an informant in your entire life?
Never. As a teenager, I took many a beating in the police stations, and I never cracked. As a bank robber, I was captured. I pled guilty to free the girlfriend that I was with, and I got a 20-year prison sentence, first offender. In the Boston FBI, no way. I met John Connolly, who's a Southie guy, Irish Catholic like myself. You know, it's friendship. Geez, if I ever hear anything, I'll tip you off, give you a heads up. And then I tell, all right, John, I says, I'll see you. You can let me know. I'd appreciate it. And that's how it got started.
Oh, that's fascinating. He sounds very lucid, and he sounds like a younger man too.
Well, it's something that really, really grounds you, because there is so much that comes out of this story with the Whitey Bulger myth, and he's this larger than life figure. To actually hear him talk and to understand these elements of this story makes it very, very fascinating.
I think Brennan's going to make an appearance here in a second, but this is kind of cool. I'm actually more interested in the documentary than I was the movie. I didn't think Black Mass was great. It was okay, but this documentary actually is pretty good. I haven't seen it, and I might actually try to check it out.
There's also, I have to say, this little interlude, probably about 14 or 15 minutes.
Yes, where the documentary, I was going to answer this really quick. Yes, documentary called Whitey. And then there's a movie starring Johnny Depp as Whitey Bulger. It's called Black Mass. And that's been out for quite a while. Thank you so much. And by the way, Karen Reed's Defense Fund link is at the top of the chat. If you'd like to make a donation to her defense, I would appreciate it. All right, let's play on players.
They digest whether or not he was even an informant, which is a departure that many people in the area, especially families, found really sensational. But it does create for great nuance and narrative arc here.
All right, Jared Bowen, thanks for that. I'm going to bring another guest into the discussion here. He's made a few cameos also in the Whitey documentary. Hank Brennan was part of Bulger's defense team. Welcome back to Greater Boston, Hank.
Well, thanks for having me.
So I take it you've seen the film as well?
I have.
And what is your take? Do you think it's a realistic portrayal of the trial, or is it a little thin on detail for your liking?
Well, unfortunately, the camera wasn't allowed in the courtroom, so it can't capture the moments and the emotion. I think we all are, and we spoke about that before. But I think it really was a bold move by Joe Berlinger. And what he did is he had the courage to look at the entire case objectively, to try to unwind some of the myths that have been told over the decades. And I think for that reason, this film's really important. It begins to show there's a lot more to the story. This is just scratching the surface. And as we tried to show at trial, the complicity isn't just the Boston FBI. This is systemic. And at some point, there has to be accountability.
I know you've been asked this before, and I think I even asked you, then why didn't you put him on the stand? Why didn't we hear some of the stuff? He was going to be convicted no matter what. On
let's hear what he says about him. Because remember, what the last video we saw, he's intelligent. He knows he's educated. He knows how to work through things. Remember, he was so high up on him. Let's hear what he has to say about Bulger now.
We hear some of the stuff. He was going to be convicted no matter what on something or other. They were going to bring him down. But let's hear what his defense was.
We would desperate.
I'd love to do that, but what will happen is it will just get booted. The stream will get booted down, so there's no real way of doing that, unfortunately. All right, let me just rewind a little bit here. Here we go.
He was going to be convicted no matter what on something or other. They were going to bring him down. But let's hear what his defense was.
We were desperate to put him on the stand, and he was willing to take the stand and implicate himself. In fact, Jay Carney and I, in our questioning, implicated him many times through the trial. But the important thing is that there had to be equal accountability. We wanted to call representatives, not just from the FBI, the Department of Justice, who allowed this to happen and orchestrated it. We wanted him to be able to talk about his relationships with high-level players in the Department of Justice, and the rulings by the court after the government tried to prevent that was He could not call witnesses from the Department of Justice. He could not speak about those relationships. He could not discuss the protection he had.
Hey, don't
so
pick on
inevitably, he
bald
could take the
people.
stand and simply give a confession, which he was willing to do, but it had no accountability for the Department of Justice. We wanted a fair trial where everybody could be held accountable.
Yeah, but I mean, right in the beginning of the trial, a judge ruled that there was no merit to that defense. So, I mean, once that ruling had been made, you still had the opportunity.
Well, we actually didn't. The judge didn't decide the facts and say there was no merit. What the court said is you can't present it at trial. If you want a pretrial hearing, you can have the issue aired before me. And Mr. Bulger, under the circumstances, did not trust a court to make judgments on his defense. He wanted a jury of his peers. So he wasn't allowed to talk about any of those issues. He wasn't allowed to call the witnesses. So that defense was taken from us. And that's why he didn't testify. We were hopeful that they would have the trial in Oklahoma or Florida, where it is televised. He'd be allowed to testify, and then the community and the public could judge his credibility.
I'm surprised he was allowed to participate even by phone in this documentary, because as you know, 60 Minutes and a number of other news organizations wanted to get an interview with Bulger in prison. Why does this, I mean, this is still being filmed and his voice is there. Why was that allowed?
This was a post-trial conversation that Attorney Carney had with Jim Bulger. There was a ruling before trial that the government felt any conversation by him with the media would prejudice the case, ignoring the fact that every one of their witnesses had had their opportunity on national syndicate shows. So in this period before he was sentenced, but after the trial, there wasn't that inherent prejudice, and this phone call happened at some point.
So it was just one phone call?
As far as I know, it was one phone call, yes.
So you are right now in the middle, thick of the appeal on Whitey Bulger. You told me it's due August 4th. You're going out there to meet with Whitey. What will you be talking about? What will the essence of that be?
Well, when I see him, we'll talk about a little bit of the trial. We'll catch up, but we'll also, most importantly, talk about the issues that we're going to present to the appeals court. I think that the brief is strong. The issues I feel passionately about, it really is about the Department of Justice being equally accountable for their conduct. There's two wonderful lawyers.
Essentially, the Commonwealth being ostracized for their conduct.
Passionately about it really is about the Department of Justice being equally accountable for their conduct. There's two wonderful lawyers. Danya Fulton, who worked on the trial team, is working with me, and a gifted lawyer, Jim Boudreau, has been helping with the appeal, and he's been instrumental. So I want to go discuss the appeal with him, let him know we're proceeding, and talk about the
irony.
issues.
He was in solitary confinement while he was at Plymouth. Is he in the general population in Arizona?
He is in Arizona as a convicted prisoner. He's in a regular population unit with the other prisoners. The conditions in Plymouth were unique, to say the least. Solitary confinement for 2.5 years was an extraordinary situation.
You know, just briefly, this is a documentary, but we mentioned that Johnny Depp film. How do you feel about that? It's a Hollywood production.
You know, I take great offense. It pains me when I see articles in the newspaper glorifying what happened in the 70s and 80s. It's based on a story that is really fiction, a story that predated all the civil trials, the Conley trials, this trial. So it just exasperates the fraud that has been imparted by the Department of Justice. This book was a mouthpiece for the FBI and DOJ, and now we have Hollywood.
Black Mass, you're talking about.
Black Mass. They're glorifying and pillaging off the suffering. We still have victims and families.
Are they going to get it? And we brought that up. Are they going to divide any of the spoils with the victims, or is it strictly a Hollywood?
I think you'd have to ask them, but I would anticipate they wouldn't give a dime. And what they're interested in is just their bottom line sales. They're going to fictionalize and sensationalize the story and not care about the suffering of everybody. And really, if you've seen firsthand, and I'm sure you have, you've spoken to many, the pain that these families have had, this is really a travesty. And I in no way validate that movie.
I happen to agree with you. All right, Hank Brennan.
Unreal. we got a couple more videos here we're going to go through. Hanks, thank you so much. As Hanky schooled on Bulger how to be a crooked government. Yes. Funny how he takes issues with the government, right? Takes issues with the government. In Whitey Bulger's case, the irony in all of this is amazing. I love this too. Lawyer for Whitey Bulger asked court to overturn conviction. Let's play this 2-minute clip here. This is back in 2015. The irony.
Thank you, Reed. The case of notorious Boston crime boss Whitey Bulger back in a Boston courtroom today. His lawyers fighting to get the convicted killer a new trial. News Center 5's Todd Kaskiewicz is live in South Boston. Todd?
Erica, there's really no way of knowing if Bulger's unrestricted testimony would have made a difference to the jury that convicted him of multiple murders and other crimes. But his defense attorneys argue he should have been able to say anything that would have helped his case. And now the defense is asking for a new trial.
We had a client who was willing to take the stand, implicate himself, and for some reason the government didn't want him to testify.
Attorney Hank Brennan was part of the team that defended former mob boss James Whitey Bulger in the 2013 trial that Bulger called a sham. Brennan spoke to us this morning after arguing to the Court of Appeals that his client did not get a fair trial, in part because Bulger would not have been allowed to talk about an immunity deal if he testified.
An accused, any accused, not just James Bulger, has a right to take the stand and talk about his relationship with people, even if it includes law enforcement people, even if it includes...
Oh, so his client gets the opportunity to talk about relationships with people. But what have you been doing here, Hank? You've been burying the McAlberts in the Karen Reed case. The irony in all of this is unbelievable. The irony is unbelievable. I love it. Unreal.
Members of the Department of Justice.
Attorney Brian Kelly was part of the prosecution team. He is now in private practice, but attended the hearing this morning.
He didn't want to testify because he would have been cross-examined for days. He chose not to, and now he's trying to pretend it was some sort of legal error, which it was not.
Stephen Davis was also in court this morning. His sister Deborah was allegedly killed by Bulger, though the jury came back with no finding for her murder.
All the victims' family didn't get a fair trial. You know, we're the ones that lost. I mean, the only thing I want to hear from him or anything to do with him is the closing of his casket.
Huh.
Bulger was not in court today. He's in federal prison in Arizona. The First Circuit Court of Appeals will hand down its ruling at a later date. Reporting live outside federal court in South Boston, Todd Kiskiewicz, WCVB.
All right. Let's go to Law and Crime Network. This was back in 2018. Hank Brennan was part of a Law and Crime panel here. And this was a murder trial of an Iowa man accused of killing a 9-year-old. His name was Stanley Liggins. He ended up getting life in prison. Unfortunately, they found this 9-year-old girl on a playground, and he did very awful things to her. But let's hear Hank Brennan here as part of this panel, Law and Crime Network.
Down. Ashley Wilcott, former judge and attorney, is with us. Not in studio today, Ashley. You're back home. You were here yesterday. And Hank Brennan is an attorney in Boston. He's joining us as well. Hank, good to see you here on Law and Crime.
You as well. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so we've got murder 1, sex abuse 1, kidnapping 1, arson 1, and a charge for willful serious injury here. The question is the evidence strong enough to get this guy? Ashley, I know you were here listening to a lot of this case yourself. What do you make thus far of the state's evidence?
Well, you know, it's all circumstantial, which we knew it would be going into it. I think they're doing a good job laying the foundation, where it happened, how the body was found, that it was burned. But I think that they have an uphill battle to really show that he did it. I mean, it is circumstantial. The family knew of him, knew who he was, and it's a small community, but they do have an uphill battle, I think.
Hank, I know that you're jumping into the debate here about this case too, but we've got an old case that's being tried for its 3rd time. Witness memories are probably a bit fuzzy because this happened so many years ago, but there's an awful lot of record in this case, 2 previous trials.
Records are really difficult to try a case with. It sanitizes the emotion in the case. Jurors watch witnesses when they testify because it's not just the words, it's how a person says things, their memory, the gestures they make. And without that, the records themselves, the transcripts, really hamper the firsthand accounts.
This becomes a tough one. You know, look, we had the first case flipped. We had a 1993 case flipped. We had a 1995 case flipped. So, Hank, I'll ask you this. When it comes to trying a case this many times, does it just become rote memorization for people who are up on the stand and less emotional?
Well, that's always the challenge. A couple of things happen. First, it becomes routine at times, and you have to guard against that. Every case, whether it's the same case or not being retried, you have to look at it like it's a brand new case.
You know that, like, a lot of that, the books and all that stuff, it's all bullshit. There was a funny article that came out. See if I can find it. there was an article that someone pointed out, because obviously we were doing back in COVID, all these news stations, they weren't doing in live interviews with people. So they were doing over Zoom or whatever the hell they were doing. And they were talking about the backgrounds, like how, the bookshelves are perfect and, the statues are aligned. And it's like all this effort that people put into this to, make their backgrounds look so like extravagant. And it was a hilarious article. It'd probably take me some time to find it, but it was funny. I remember reading it. It was just really great. They're comic books. Oh gosh. All right, let's hear more hanky panky
Because
here.
it does drain a lot of the adrenaline and emotion out of it. And secondly, when witnesses testify, they seem very concerned about their prior testimony and very tied to it. And there's always the concern or worry that they'll be criticized for being different, that memories change over time, or they may not be as exact. So it takes a certain natural ability out of a witness. It hampers them in a way because they're afraid that they may say something different. So they do become a bit monotone at times. They become very entrenched in their prior testimony, and it limits the government's case.
It certainly does. Look, we're going to continue to cover this case gavel to gavel here on the Law and Crime Network. We're going to take a quick break. We will be back in just a moment, though, with more testimony in the Stanley Liggins case out of Iowa, again, accused of killing a 9-year-old girl.
That's awful.
We had one trial, and then it was flipped on appeal. Then we had another trial, then it was flipped on appeal. We're back again. They decided to move this trial to a different county, and they cited publicity because of it. Is it the publicity or the fact that there's just simply been 3 trials now?
Anytime there's a trial at the state, and concerned that the jurors have heard about the defendant,
Background noise
another
in the
conviction,
video.
very safe is moving it to another county, so it's not a potential issue on appeal if there's a conviction.
Yeah, Ashley, what do you make of this? I mean, it's certainly a bizarre circumstance whenever a case gets flipped on appeal and then sent back for another trial, but 3 times now.
Right. And I think the part of it is it's a small community, Aaron. And so we discussed this yesterday some. That means that people knew about it, knew of it. The same people seem to live in the same community. We have fire department workers who have been with the same fire department with Davenport for 33 years since the time of the incident, 1990. So I think it's really important to keep in mind that
Ooh,
the
that's
community
terrible.
knows about it. So that piece of the publicity probably does necessitate it being moved so that he has an opportunity to have a fair trial.
Yeah, Hank, I'll throw one of the questions at you now as to why this case got flipped. Apparently, it sounds to me like it would have been a Brady-type violation where the authorities apparently didn't hand over enough evidence. So certainly, if that's what went on, then this is not a surprise that an appeals court did say, look, new trial here.
I think the appeals court made the right decision. It's impossible to have a fair trial when there's police reports and evidence that contradict witnesses. The fact that they found this evidence years later in itself is pretty extraordinary because in many cases it's never found. There can be no real assurance of a fair trial if an attorney doesn't have a right to fully question the witnesses. And so while the lower court had problems with that and didn't overturn the case.
Isn't it amazing how they found evidence years later and he thinks it's just great that it gets to be brought in this trial? Isn't that amazing? The irony, I'm telling you, the irony of all of this is amazing. This is back from 2018. We're talking about a case, a guy named Stanley Liggins that just did awful things to a 9-year-old girl and ultimately was convicted and sent to prison for the rest of his life. But the irony in all this is amazing. That's why I wanted to go through these videos and listen to all the bullshit. The irony.
On further appeal, I think the decision to give the defendant a fair trial was the right one.
Yeah, this is another one of those appeals decisions that I want to sit down and read personally as we're in the midst of a retrial yet again for Stanley Liggins in Iowa, accused of killing a 9-year-old, Jennifer
Terrible.
Lewis.
Awful.
Her body
Awful,
was
awful.
found burned near an elementary school. We will be
Awful.
right back.
Disgusting.
Case because we've been saying that this is the 3rd trial. There are a series of appellate cases here. I can't wait to get into them because that's when we get into the details of exactly what was missing in the first case, exactly what was missing in the second case, and why we're back here for yet another trial. But first, just looking at that witness get off the stand, it's clear that this is a case that happened quite some time ago. This guy who was a detective, who was probably in the prime of his career back in 1990 when this thing happened, now, you know, needing some assistance getting on.
Yeah, this is great, right? It's funny he's bitching about Brady violations. Oh, I'm telling you, this is the irony in all of this. I'm so glad we went through these. That's why I wanted to get a full profile on Hanky Panky here.
Off the witness stand, and it's just a visible, tangible reminder of just how much time has passed. I'm looking at the photos from the scene there. These look like old black and white photos. Back in 1990, newspapers were still mostly black and white. So it doesn't sound like it was that long ago, but it was that long ago. Ashley, apparently we're all aging. Who would have known?
Yeah, right. So I do agree that, you know, it was very hard to hear him. She even had to say, speak into the microphone. I'm sure the jury had a hard time hearing him. They had to use the prior deposition with his testimony to refresh his memory to try to elicit some of the testimony that they needed. So those things all go hand in hand with a 28-year-old's case. It's going to directly affect the witness's credibility in terms of how much weight the jury gives that witness, I think.
Yeah, I mean, is it really going to affect the jury's ability to believe what the guy says, though? Or is the jury just going to look and say, this guy is now 28 years older than he was when he first witnessed and observed what he's testifying about? What do you think?
I don't think a jury is going to naturally hold it against the witness that they're much older, but time fades everything, including memories. And certain character of the evidence is lost over time. The suddenness, the imminence, and the ability to expound upon certain questions or perspectives that he may have been able to do at earlier trials. So while I don't think he'll be punished because time has faded his memory, juries are forgiving, I think, in that way, it does hamper and weaken the value of the testimony considerably.
Well, let's talk about the value of the testimony itself. And Ashley, I'll ask you this one first. This is a case before a lot of modern forensic evidence was even dreamed up. Okay, this predates the use of DNA evidence in trials. This predates cell phone evidence, certainly, which are basically the hallmarks of almost every single modern criminal prosecution. So we have a circumstantial case, people saying that this guy was in the area, that he knew the victim's family. A lot of observers have issues with this case. Is it an issue with the case, or is it just an issue with a case from 28 years ago that we're looking at with modern eyes?
I think that it may be the second of those things for this reason. So in opening, the prosecution even said, hey, look, there is no DNA, perhaps because of the fire. So we can't even, the prosecution didn't say this, but this is my point. You can't even test it now. Often we have DNA samples that can still be tested to give us some results. So that goes directly to the fact it was 28 years ago. None of that evidence existed to test today, to use some of our modern techniques to determine, hey, is there any additional evidence? The other thing I want to say is that when this man was arrested for this crime back in 1990, very shortly in the same month that the crime occurred, they made a point of he was out on bond for an incident with another different 9-year-old child. And so I think certainly that caused 28 years ago them to say, hey, this is one more factor that says it's got to be him.
Okay, so, you know, we get into this in case after case after case. Is it wrong to bring in this sort of other bad act evidence into this particular proceeding? And it seems that this is open to interpretation. The rule that I was taught is that it has to be a very similar other act or occurrence, you know, same MO, same type of crime, similar types of victim, but there's a lot of squishiness in the rule there. So Attorney Brennan, is this a case of rounding up the usual suspects, or is it just logical to say that if this guy is out on an original crime like that, that maybe he is the suspect we should be looking at?
Well, the idea of introducing propensity evidence, which is another way to say a prior bad act, is like a lightning rod in a case, because jurors can have very different perspectives. For example, they might think that there is a weakness in the evidence. It's filled in by the fact that the person has this predatory history. Or some jurors might say the evidence doesn't convince me beyond a reasonable doubt, but this is the type of person that should go to jail, so I'll forgive some of the weakness in evidence. The idea of propensity evidence is dramatic, and even as a young prosecutor, I was very, very hesitant to use it, even if I thought I could have it omitted. It really takes away the idea in my mind of a fair trial unless there's something so unique about it.
And we see that rule stretched, in my opinion, beyond the breaking point in some of the cases we cover here at the Law and Crime Network. This one, though, since the acts are similar, it might be an applicable way to use that rule if we're going to bring evidence like that in. So, look, we're going to continue to listen to some of the previous testimony in this case. We've got transcript testimony from a Diane Pemberton, that we're going to play for you now while the court is in the midst of a mid-afternoon break. We are listening to live testimony from what appears to be a DNA analyst in the Stanley Liggins case out of Iowa, the case of a man, the accused mob boss from Boston. Hank,
hang on. I want to go back here. He's going to talk about Whitey Bulger.
A 9-year-old girl named Jennifer Lewis. He's facing a number of charges: murder, sex abuse, kidnapping, and arson. We have to say goodbye to Hank Brennan. He's an attorney from Boston who joined us this afternoon. Also, we should mention the attorney for Whitey Bulger, the accused mob boss from Boston. Hank, it was good to see you here on Law and Crime. Any final thoughts on the Liggins case before we say goodbye?
Well, I'm interested over the next couple of weeks to see if the government has any more direct circumstantial evidence. We've heard a lot of putting a defendant near the scene, trying to tie the accused to an investigation, but it really is a little bit light at this point on actual circumstantial facts. And that's what I think I'll be looking for as I listen.
I am as well. So, Hank, good to see you. Ashley, I know you can stick around with us. We have to take a quick break. We will be back with more live testimony in the Liggins case in Iowa when we return here on Law and Crime.
Wow. All right. Let's fast forward to current day. And here we are. Karen Reed. This was back on September 21st, 2024. In a little bio, it says Karen Reed to face Whitey Bulger's attorney at new trial. Here we go.
She just repeated the phrase over and over again. I hit him.
Miss Reed's a fire extinguisher. Member for 6 months. Thank you so much. She says, she or he says, keep up the great work. I appreciate that. Thank you for being here. Smash that like button if you haven't done that. Subscribe, turn on that bell notification. And we'll get caught up here. Current day. Here we go. Karen Reed.
Google hypothermia. Google how long it takes to die in the cold.
Did you either cut up the SIM card or rip it up?
Cut it up or broke it. I observed a damaged rear right tail light. No nude so far. I hate that man. I truly hate him.
These injuries were from an animal attack, possibly a large dog.
Yes.
A new high-profile prosecutor could end up tipping the scales against Karen Reed when she is retried for manslaughter. The Norfolk District Attorney announced this week that defense attorney Hank Brennan has been named Special Assistant DA. Brennan famously defended notorious mobster Whitey Bulger. He'll join the existing prosecution team that was led by Adam Lawley. Brennan said in a statement that he will ensure Karen Reed gets a fair trial and will prosecute this, quote, meticulously.
Oh, I needed another moment to laugh. Look at the statement. Fully responsible in all obligations for prosecuting this case and will do so meticulously, ethically, and zealously without compromise. Oh boy. The irony. I love it. It just all comes back around.
Ethically and zealously without compromise. Karen Reed's first trial, of course, ended in a hung jury. She was charged with second-degree murder, the death of her Boston police officer boyfriend, John O'Keefe. She's rescheduled she's scheduled for retrial in January. If it goes, she, of course, has that appeal going after those jurors came forward and said that they had indeed come to a unanimous decision on a couple of the charges against her, including the top charge of second-degree murder. So whether January actually hits, we'll have to wait and see. There could be some delays in it. Bottom line is they're bringing in some ammo. The Commonwealth is, let's bring in our guests. They know everything about whatever happens in the legal world up in Massachusetts and New England criminal defense.
This is back in September 21st, 2024. So this is when Brennan's first coming into the case. We'll get to hear what these two attorneys say about
Attorney
it.
Joseph Krowski Jr. and former chief trial counsel and former head of the homicide unit in Norfolk DA's office, Richard Grundy. Good morning, gentlemen. Happy Friday to you.
Good morning.
Joseph, to you first. What do you know about Mr. Brennan, the special prosecutor brought in to help out the Commonwealth for round 2?
Well, I can tell you this. Can you hear me? I'm on vacation, so I'm not getting great connection. Okay. I'll tell you this. Hank Brennan's not a very good golfer, but he is a wonderful attorney. No one is going to out-lawyer him. No one is going to outwork him. No one is going to outthink him.
All right. Served as defense attorney for Notorious. That's really how he made his name. That's all I ever really kind of hear about him. And the fact that he loses all of his motions during Karen Reed hearings, and he's going up against some of the most highest profile defense attorneys in the world. I'll even throw that out there. Over 25 years of experience in state and federal courts, joins the team of Adam Lally, Laura McLaughlin, and Caleb Schillinger. Good luck, buddy.
There are lawyers that say they work 100 hours a week. Then there's Hank Brennan, who works 100 hours a week.
This, do you agree, Richard?
Yeah, I can't spell his own name.
I haven't had that much exposure to Mr. Brennan. He hasn't been all that active in the prosecution offices that I've been in charge of, but his reputation is exactly as Joe put out there. And, the more interesting factor here, I think, is that there is a special prosecutor, and more than the majority of times when a district attorney's office seeks a special prosecutor in a case, it's because of a conflict, which we don't necessarily have here, and they get an assistant district attorney from another district attorney's office, which in this case could have been a seasoned homicide prosecutor. So I think there's a lot more here. And let's also remember that the vast majority of the jury, 2/3 of the jury, felt that Ms. Reed was in fact guilty during the last trial. So the appointment of a special prosecutor is somewhat not suspect, but there's a lot of different motivations to that than the normal, I think. But as far as Attorney Brennan is concerned,
yeah, Joseph, what are your thoughts on that? The idea that, why do you need reinforcements?
Sure. Lori, bring me your phone.
Oh, looks like we lost Joseph. We can hear you. I guess you can't hear us very well. He's on vacation. He's enjoying a day off. So Richard, let's pick up on that while we work out Joseph. Why do you need reinforcements? You know the case the second time around, you should be able to pull off the same scenario or better, one would think. What do you think is behind this? Is this overwhelming need to win and bury Karen Reed?
No, I think if that were the sole motivation, you go to another district attorney's office, you say, give me your best seasoned prosecutor. I want to have add some cleanness, some legitimacy to this prosecution team that got battered by the state troopers that the district attorney personally chose to be in his office. I think there's got to be more of a motivation here that is probably and in all likelihood political. It's not an unusual circumstance that even though Mr. Marcy is not up for election, the district attorney, for some time, there are people now, and one of them actually went to press, opened a campaign account that he's going to run for Norfolk County District Attorney. So I think it is linked to that, to put somewhat of a different face on it. As we said, Attorney Brennan has a good reputation. And secondarily, I would say that Sandra Birchmore, who was a young woman killed by a Stoughton police officer now under indictment by the U.S. attorneys, and the constant or the ongoing need for the U.S. Attorney's Office to step in and do the Norfolk District Attorney's business is likely a motivation as well.
Yes, Birchmore adding more to the dark cloud that is over that office in many people's minds. I think we have Joseph.
And I'm going to say, I love the fact that the defense filed that motion and is asking essentially for the Sandra Birchmore case file, because a lot of the intertwining, if you haven't followed this and you're new here to my chat, in that Sandra Birchmore case and the Karen Reed case, a lot of the intertwining investigators are intertwined in both cases. So I think it's a phenomenal move on, what's been dubbed the dream team now, to look into that. Let's look at those files. We know that there was a lot of hidden things that went on in Sandra Birchmore's case until we got the second family autopsy by Dr. Michael Bowden that essentially said, look, her I think it was hinal bone, it was broken. That was not from a hanging, it's from being choked out. And he ultimately ruled that as a murder. And that's why Matthew Falwell has been picked up. He had his first hearing the other day. And he's going to go through that process and most likely will be convicted of that crime. But why not look into that file? Was there any other missteps or conversations that went on? I think it's a brilliant move. Hinoid, thank you. Hinoid bone, thank you. But I knew it was there somewhere. But let's look at that. Let's look at the file. Let's rip that open. Where else did these police officers make missteps? Where else did these officers plant evidence? Because there was a lot of covering up for those Farwell brothers in Divine. And they knew. Everybody knew about this. And I'm going to tell you, Sandra Birchmore was not the only victim. There are many, many other victims that, unfortunately, those three officers, not officers now, but officers at the time, used their power against all of those young, probably boys and girls. And I just hope that if there are other victims, that more people come forward, because we need to put away scumbags like this. They shouldn't live on this earth. They should just be eliminated. Absolutely eliminated. If you're doing that to children, goodbye. See you later. Have a nice life. So, I think it's phenomenal. Let's look at the files, right? So we'll see. Excuse me. Let's look up here in the chat. Yes, Hinoid bone. Thank you so much. I was close. I was close. Kelly Reed checking in, saying hi, Brian. Respectfully not commenting on the topic. It's okay, Kelly. I understand. I completely understand, but nice to see you here. All right. Let's hear more here from the Court TV back on September 21st, 2024, when Hank Brennan joined the Commonwealth.
Is back.
Let's try it.
What's the motivate? Why do you think the Commonwealth needed reinforcements?
No one else will do it.
Well, two reasons. Clearly, this is not a one attorney job. The defense was well resourced. The amount of discovery is significant.
I'm going to pause this again really quick and talk. I look at this and say, I think Hank Brennan has his whole career on the line on this one, and he's going to fail. He's going to fail, and you're seeing those failures already in these hearings and the motions. And, he's going up against a super PAC. He's going to have a lot of problems. You think he's going to turn to Adam Lally and Lally's going to help him out? I love it. You think Adam Lally is going to advise Brennan during Karen Reed 2.0? Oh, I love it. Ain't going to happen. But Brennan's got it all on the line. I think this just is going to crush him. Absolutely crush him.
Complex involvement with the federal government. But I think this is a signal from District Attorney Morrissey that he's in it to win it. Also, you have to remember there was a lot of criticism that the relationship between the police department in the district attorney's office was too close. I think it's a stroke of genius to bring in someone that's independent, autonomous, with no pre-existing relationships with the law enforcement in this case.
It's my Boston accent. I can't help it. Yes, Michael Bowden. But yeah, Bowden. I used to watch him on Autopsy on HBO, and you can actually go watch all those previous episodes. That was like way in the 90s. So it was a little bit more background on Brennan. Served as a defense attorney for notorious mobster Whitey fucking Bulger. Over 25 years experience in state and federal courts. Joins Adam Lally, Laura McLaughlin, and Caleb Sillinger.
Because it is a case of public interest. So I think he answers that criticism and also strengthens his prosecution team significantly.
Richard, round two, you still have Trooper Proctor. You still have the issues that are embedded in this case for the Commonwealth. How do you think they present and get around those issues second time around? What have they learned, and what would you do now going around it, specifically with the problems in the investigation?
Well, the first thing I do is see the extent that I can limit the use of those individuals at trial. We all know that you can't hide these things, so you have to put it, the defense is going to put it out there, so you want to address it head on. But the prosecution this time will be in the position that they should have been last time if the administration, in my opinion, had acted correctly. And that is to say, he is no longer a part of this prosecution. He was excised. He was taken out of the district attorney's office. And remember, in Massachusetts, those state troopers are assigned, housed, and take direction from the district attorneys themselves. So Attorney Lally should have been able in the first trial to say, we got rid of him. We heard these things, we got rid of him. Instead, he's still there. One of his superiors was asked that he receive any kind of punishment for this. And his answer was, well, I told the higher ups to. So message, no.
Ken, that's a good point. So I'm sure they were not honest with Brennan about this investigation. That's a good point. Because I bet you walked in that office and just, because I mean, what did Brennan even said? I didn't even watch the trial. Now, we don't know if he did or he didn't. He said, I didn't watch the trial. And maybe he went in there and sat with Michael Morrissey, and Morrissey sweetened the deal to him. And he thought, hey, this is going to be a cakewalk. I can come in. I was a prosecutor. I was a defense lawyer. I defended Whitey fucking Bulger. Here I am. I'll take on the Reed case. And then, holy shit. He started having those meetings with Lally, and Lally's like, here we go. Here we go. All right, here we go.
Oh, he had. So now you're in a position, you craft, I think you can craft your evidence around other witnesses and then put your best foot out forward that you took some action to excise this person.
Joseph, the appeal in terms from the defense is going up to try to reverse the trial court's judgment that there should not be a different charges on the plate, that they shouldn't get rid of the two charges because of the jurors that came forward and said they were in agreement getting rid of murder two. Do you think that at the end of the day, Karen Reed will still be facing the top charge of murder two, or do you think it's going to get reversed on appeal? A, and then B, is January really going to take place, or is this appeal going to push the trial in your estimation?
Well, the single justice referred it to the full bench, which means it has to be briefed. I think inevitably that is going to delay the trial. I don't know how they get it briefed and argued and decided before January. I don't think that the appeal will be successful. Ultimately, it's going to be up to the district attorney's office or Attorney Brennan what to do with the murder two charge.
All right.
All right, we're going to drop out of that one. We'll play another court TV one here. I haven't seen this one yet. I saw it drop about 11 hours ago. This says, what is it? Karen Reed, poor decisions led to John O'Keefe's death. I love how they, it's funny how this media always frames Karen Reed in all of this. They make her out to be this notorious killer that was out for John, and we know that's not the truth. They want headlines. They want to put all this out in the headlines and grab people. She said, we made, during Ted Daniels' interview, we made poor decisions. We both made poor decisions leading up to what happened. She said, hanging out with the wrong people. Hanging out with the wrong people. Exactly. It's all semantics. M, thank you so much for being a member for 7 months. She says, great show. I appreciate that. All right, let's listen to this this newly dropped Court TV. We'll have a few laughs because I know everybody hates Court TV.
And only serve to force us to compromise these deeply held beliefs. I'm not going to do that to you folks. Your service is complete. I'm declaring a mistrial in this.
She didn't send them back. She wanted out. She wanted on the Cape. Beach time. I need my weekends too. Not even in the interest of justice here. Not even in the interest of justice to send the jury. Let's try one more time. Try one more time. Nope. Not going to make you do that. I'm going to declare, and she's pissed. I'm going to declare this a mistrial. You can hear it in her voice. And then I bet you she ran out of that fucking courtroom, got in her car, drove to the beach, had a couple of drinks, and hung out. Running away.
Your service is complete. I'm declaring a mistrial in this case. I'll be in to see you privately in a few minutes. So thank you so much for your service.
That was the end of round one in the Karen Reed saga. Round two, the retrial is fast approaching in April. The polarizing defendant still believes that she was framed and is not backing down from those claims. Charged with second-degree murder of her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe, Reed made many more statements in a new interview with Boston 25 News.
Let's see how they spin this.
I'm not afraid of taking the stand, and I'm clearly not afraid of speaking, but they're playing hardball. So we'll weigh the pros and cons, and we'll make another second game time decision.
Who would you rather face? Is it Adam Lally, who we saw in the first trial, or is it Hank Brennan?
I don't care who I face. I have the truth. I have the best attorneys. Do your worst.
Reed, you heard her say she's not afraid to take the stand. She's very involved in her defense. That is very clear. And she talks about it in this interview, how, if some discovery comes in, boom, they're all in. They divide and conquer. She is as involved in a defense as you could be. She also had this to say in this interview with Ted Daniel with Boston 25 about John O'Keefe's family sitting inches away from her in the courtroom.
Do you feel the presence of the O'Keefe family behind you in court?
I honestly, I almost look through them. Paul sitting there doesn't impact me. It doesn't bother me. That's John's brother. They've attempted to send me messages, and as soon as I see the name comes up, I just delete it.
So there is why is she doing the interview now, and what is this going to mean for her in the criminal trial coming up in April? Will some of this, is there anything there that could be shown to a jury that they might react to? Probably not. I mean, at this point in the case, there are some interviews that are going to make it into this trial. It sounds like that she did early on in this case that were not shown the first time around. Let's talk about it with the former head of the homicide unit in Norfolk County, Massachusetts, Mr. Richard Grundy. Good morning, sir. What's your take on Karen Reed, this new interview, doing more talking as we see the retrial approaching very soon in April?
Well, good morning, Ted. I think this is just picking up kind of where they left off, or never really left off. There was certainly a trickle of it since the end of the first trial up until now. And that is to try the case of...
But I look at it in a way that it's not like the first trial. We've added a bunch of things already to Karen's team. Bob Alessi, possibly Mark Betterow. And now we're finding out that there's more discovery. There's Sally Pieces videos. I don't even call them Sally Port videos. It's just like Sally Pieces videos. Here we are 3 years into this trial case, and we're finding out that there's more discovery that's been hidden. I mean, that's multiple Brady violations. And I don't want people to get nervous about the SJC ruling, because there are other avenues that this defense team can take, and I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will. And if they get to trial and it goes to trial, I was laughing the other day. I was watching one of these things and they go, oh, there's, look, you got to take into account, there's still a plea deal on the table here. They could plea something out. Karen fucking Reed ain't taking a plea deal. She ain't going to take a deal for something that she didn't do. And she made that very evident in the Vanity Fair article. They said they came to her, I think it was they offered her 2 to 3 years. She could have just walked out of prison in 2 or 3 years and take this charge. And she's fucking taking that. I'm defending myself because I didn't do it. But I want everybody to look at this because what we saw in the first trial from the defense team, I think they're going to focus on many different areas this time around. So you might not see that drilling in like they did with Jennifer McCabe and drilling in like they did with Brian Higgins. I guarantee you there will still be some of that, but I think it's going to be a completely different look on the defense of Karen Reed this time around. And that's just my gut feeling. I think there's many, many avenues to explore here. Let's see. Shannon, thank you so much. Says Barry. Oh my God, in just an hour. This is a great show. Thank you, Brian. Thank you for the $5. I appreciate that. I try to mix it up and do some different things and get creative and try to do profiles of these lawyers. I've done a profile on Yannetti. You can go back and watch on my channel. I've done a profile of Jackson on my channel. We had a lot of fun with those. And it's an interesting look to look into, Hank Brennan. A lot of people just know him from, Whitey Bulger, but haven't really seen a lot of FaceTime with him. I mean, obviously now we are with the hearings, but as his previous trials and how he handled, his business back then, I just think it's funny and it's ironic. A lot of the things that he says and a lot of things that he said, the Commonwealth is crooked and here we are. he's working with the Commonwealth. It's amazing. All right, we'll go on here.
Public, anytime a person tells you repeatedly that they're not afraid of something, one thing you can be assured is they're afraid of it. They don't think it's going to be to their interests. And I don't think at this point in time, certainly Karen Reed has any intention of testifying. If she didn't want to testify when Adam Lally was prosecuting the case, she certainly doesn't want to testify when Hank Brennan is trying the case. So this is, I think when we hear of jury sullying or tampering, we think more of a Sopranos type thing where a juror gets visited at his place of work or on the way to his parked car. But just disseminating your plea of not guilty and outrage at the prosecution and summoning in the federal involvement in the investigation of this case repetitively, as we've seen when a case has this kind of media attention, gets to people. And that's kind of what led to that first trial being so, I believe, out of focus because everybody was responding to what the defendants had put out there publicly, not necessarily in the courtroom.
Here's a little bit more of what Karen told Boston 25 about John O'Keefe specifically. She said, I have very mixed feelings, when I look back on John, because I see a lot of poor decisions that were all precursors to his death. She goes on to say he was near the road and he was dying, and I didn't think he was purposely put in that place at the time.
Oh, sorry. Here's the bullshit part of all this. And I want to go back now and watch this because they're spinning it here. The first statement she made during that interview, but I don't think that she made that statement. And it's funny how they're lumping it out and they're leaving out stuff that's in the middle. She said, we made poor decisions to precursors to his death. And then she said, she said the people we were hanging out with. So they cut that out. And I'm going to tell you, I don't think she said He was near the road and was dying, and I think that he was purposely put. Did she say that during that? Was that a previous statement they're sneaking in there? I want to go back and watch it now. Is it this segment here? Let's see. Let's see. They're really mixing up all the statements. They are twisting the words. Let's see. Is it this one? Let's listen.
Every day that they're working on framing me. Picture
would not say where the investigation stands.
Here again is Ted Daniel with that layer to this case.
I picture every
All right,
day
Jen, thank you.
that they're working on framing me.
It's no secret. Karen Reed believes she's being railroaded, and critical aspects of her defense have come gift wrapped from the feds.
All accounts, he didn't do anything wrong. She's a whack job.
State Trooper Michael Proctor's personal text messages,
excuse me,
butt dials, and discarded phones.
Did you pull the SIM card out of your phone, Mr. Higgins?
Independent scientists who testified that John O'Keefe's injuries were not from an SUV.
The theory of the case is a car accident. The federal materials included a report that said there wasn't a car accident. That's 95% of the case.
The feds devoted a lot of time and resources investigating what happened here. We are now years removed from that, and there's been no action taken.
Well, I don't know that there's been no action taken.
But no indictments.
No indictments.
25 investigators learned the Norfolk DA's office has communicated with the U.S. Attorney's Office.
See how they cut Jackson off too? Because he would no indictments, and then he probably would have said, but. So it's this editing is weird.
About this case since Reed's mistrial in July. The DA's office denied our public records requests for any emails or letters, citing in part a federal protective order. Do you expect that having a new head of the U.S. Attorney's Office in Boston will change anything?
But I can say that I was very, very happy with what they did and what they disclosed, trying to get the truth out previously, and I hope Ms. Foley does the same thing. I'm looking forward to her continuing the investigation. I hope she does.
As for Michael,
Right, so it wasn't that segment. I have the other one here. Let's pull this up because I want to hear that quote. Let's see.
Since her legal fight began, it's the command center for her defense, and she is one of the commanders.
When we get new information, we just divide and conquer, and we can break it down really fast.
On the road, we drove by the financial services firm where she worked for 15 years before her arrest.
Little did I know, I'd reconnect with someone I had dated nearly 20 years earlier, and then he would be tragically killed, murdered, and I've been framed for it.
We appreciate you guys coming here. Reed's LA-based lawyer, Alan Jackson, joined her 3 years to the date of John O'Keefe's death. How much do you think about him?
I think about him in terms of his final days, his final weeks. I mean, we have his cell phone, which a cell phone to anyone is like a diary. The time that I spent with John, 2 years, it's now been 3 since he's gone. And I have very mixed feelings, you know, when I look back on John, because I see a lot of poor decisions that were all precursors to his death.
Poor decisions by whom?
By both of us. Just drinking, being around the wrong people.
So they cut that out. That's what I wanted to hear. So if you go back to court TV, that's what I wanted to hear. I have mixed feelings, you know, when I look back at John, because I see a lot of poor decisions that were all precursors to his death. Well, what kind of decisions? Well, the drinking and hanging out with the wrong people. They should have put that in there. Cut that out. Exactly. That's what I mean. There's damn news stations, and that's why you got to be really careful when you do these things. Why Karen probably hasn't done a lot of these, because look, they just cut it up. They shift the narrative a different way on a channel. It's like, you know, watching news stations. Fox News, CNN, whatever you believe in, whatever your political views are, that's what these channels do. They just bounce everything back and forth, cut it the way that they want to shape the narrative and their political belief. It's crazy.
His death. She goes on to say he was near the road and he was dying, and I didn't think he was purposely put in that place at the time. This is about the federal case. She said the federal materials included a report that said there wasn't a car accident. That's 95% of this.
So they're cutting quotes of her up and arranging them in different orders. That's not the way it was said in the interview. This is very interesting. I don't know why they just didn't play the segment.
Case, it wasn't just inconsistent. It was diametrically opposed to the Commonwealth's theory of the case. Richard, this case was a hung jury, and depending on, the reporting on what the split was, it seemed, there's 10-2 was thrown out there. Even reports that the jury was unanimous in the top charge, that they agreed she was not guilty in. You add Michael Proctor into the mix, the despicable behavior that he had. Are you surprised the Commonwealth is coming back at her with such zeal, going out, getting Hank Brennan? And it just seems to be just real rancor here between a defendant and a government institution.
Am I surprised? I'm not. I think, it was patently obvious. This is not a problem unique to Massachusetts, and my titling it a problem. But, district attorneys are elected officials. We have not had a person who has a significant background or as a trial lawyer elected.
And this is why it's very, very, very important. If you live in the state of Massachusetts, Norfolk County, it's very important for you to get out in 2026 and vote. And one of the candidates that I had here on my channel, Juna Perkins, you can watch her interview here that I had live in studio and hear how she's going to change Norfolk County. And I always say, it's very important. Local elections is the place where you live and where your neighborhood is and who is your protection. Everybody worries way too much about who the president's going to be. Vote for the people in your community, people. They make the difference. If they're not getting the job done, get out and vote them out. Put someone in that cares about your community. Put someone in that's going to do their job. All right, let's keep
to the position of district attorney. So I think the layers of the onion were peeled away during that first trial, and it was exposed that the Commonwealth did a poor job, despite the result that I think many people were expecting to go other ways. So I think they kind of are tightened their belt and said, look, we did not put forth our best foot, and we need to do that. And they feel that they found a better path to do so. In addition to this individual case, people within the district attorney's office are looking at their own reputations, their own futures, political and otherwise. So I'm not surprised that this is going on. And we're seeing little things like the idea that their phone forensics, the defense's phone forensic expert was not challenged at all with respect to his qualifications in the first trial is a huge red flag. Any trial lawyer will tell you.
That said, Judge Cannone is allowing the dog bite expert back in. Prosecutor Commonwealth wanted her that expert bounced, and the cell phone expert from the defense that was the one opinion saying that search for how long does it die in the cold was done at 2 a.m. The fact that this stuff's coming back in, you can fire Trooper Proctor or do whatever. He's coming back in some level, obviously, in what he did. Why is it that the Commonwealth thinks that just hiring a former mob attorney is going to turn this case around and we're going to win this time because Hank Brennan's going to save us just like he did Whitey Bulger, which he did.
I kind of like that right there. I kind of like that. I like the little spiciness here. Let's see.
Brennan's going to save us just like he did Whitey Bulger, which he didn't.
Earlier.
But maybe the answer to that, Ted, is hope springs eternally. But I think they needed a stronger, more experienced foot placed forward, and apparently didn't believe that they could find that within their own office. And again, I think, my perspective of this is that after making so many errant moves in that first trial, juries tend to get it. And in this case, it seemed that they got it, that Karen Reed was behind the wheel that struck the victim here, leading to his death. That is the other side of that coin. Dave Yanetti's opening statement and Karen's that I am being framed. They rejected that. The majority of the jury rejected that, even if we take into consideration what they supposedly unanimously reached a verdict on. So I think,
so do you think to that point,
Richard,
do you think to that point that the defense is maybe, because I agree with you, the idea, it's one thing to defend your client and say that we don't know what happened and that's there's reasonable doubt. It's reasonable doubt she's not guilty. They have a clear path to there, but they could make people really judge their case. And their case is pretty hard to completely take in and believe 100% that a lot of people are involved in a conspiracy to frame this woman. Where
you have a bunch of fucking people that were inside a house. They were there at a party. How is this so hard? I don't understand. This is what bothers me about all of this is that, how do you convince, that a bunch of people are involved in this? It's very easy. There are multiple connections, retired law enforcement or current law enforcement that know the responding officers that came to that house, that know the responding EMS workers that came to that house. Okay. You have a family of people, the McAlberts, I want to lump them all in together, that were inside that house. And when John walked in that house, something happened. How is it so hard to, figure all that out? John was beat, probably knocked out, and then there was an oh shit moment. And someone probably took the lead, or a couple people took the lead in the conversation and said, this is the way that it's going to all get worked out. This is how it's going to be. And no one deviates from this story. It's not that hard. It's not that hard to get it all together. Well, yeah, lies come out and people tend to forget things, but you know what I'm saying? In that moment, here's the story. This is what we're doing. Everybody's going to stick to it. Holy shit, what do we do? I didn't fucking mean to do it like that, or fuck him. We took him down finally. Well, what do we do? Well, who was the person that dropped him off? Karen. Well, we don't really fucking know her. Fuck her. Drag him out on the front lawn and fucking leave him there. And then if anything comes up and someone shows up and sees it or finds him in the morning, we'll just say she fucking hit him and took off. We were in the house. We didn't hear or see anything. They must have had an argument. It's not that hard. All right, let's go.
No one really knows what happened there. Maybe she hit him and he didn't, he was knocked out or something, and then maybe the snowplow got him. Maybe all these maybes, that works to the defense. But when you're saying, listen, jury, the Commonwealth is after my client, they conspired to frame her. That's a pretty big bar. That's a pretty big mountain to climb. Is it an error, in your opinion, for them
Kim sums it up right here. Deleted text messages, destroyed phones, Google search at 2:27 a.m. and 40 seconds. Planet Evans, Missing Sally Point original videos. They all lied on the stand. Of course they did. I mean, this is not hard to figure out, people. And then you got what? The corrupt trooper that's fucking saying all this nasty stuff about Karen. Holy smokes. I don't get it. It's very easy. It's obvious. And that's what we need the jury to see and do in Karen Read 2.0.
To come back with the same zeal in round 2 that they had in round 1, basically saying the Commonwealth is after her.
Yeah, Jen.
So, right. One of the things that I think was really striking is that every year of this media drumbeat as to this frame up and all the evidence that they were going to bring forth of the house being sold, the house being ripped apart, evidence being disposed of, we find out that the only experts they have were provided through the federal investigation. They were not prepared on their own to present any of those. The dog bite expert was sitting in California in her Barco lounger watching the trial when she came forward. So they were not prepared for the defense that they put forward.
And look at the guy that the prosecution's now going to bring on. Some fucking YouTube guy that's not even a medical professional. He got a certificate in dog training, and we're going to get into him. I'm actually going to have Todd McGee on my show. We're going to go through this guy. Yeah. I love that one. The internet guy. We're going to bring him in. It doesn't even have a medical license, is not even a licensed medical professional. He got a training. He got a training certificate. Unbelievable. And we're going to go through him. Don't worry. Crosby. Jim Crosby. All right, let's finish this out.
And yes, anytime a defense attorney steps up in front of the jury and says, I am going to prove to you, you lose a portion of that reasonable doubt and it becomes a 50-50 pick a story, which one seems more likely.
Yeah, which could be a risk. We'll see. We're still a ways away, and they're still formulating their strategies, if you will. But boy, you say the name Karen Read, and people perk up because it's one of those cases that really has people's attention. Richard is always.
All right, people. Let's do this. One more video here. A new video from Microdots. Searching and deciding to frame Karen Read, and we'll end with this tonight. And I just want to let everybody know I appreciate you all being here, being subscribed to the channel, all my channel members, my moderators that have those blue wrenches. I appreciate all your hard work and dedication here to the channel. We still have a long way to go in all of this. And I'll be covering some other things along the way here pretty soon. The Idaho 4 case is going to kick up in late summer if it goes to trial, which I think it will. Obviously, we have Brian Walsh in the fall that we'll be covering as well. And in other cases, because there's always cases. And we're still going to be on the Enrique Delgado Garcia case as this keeps formulating. And we just had a new article drop the other day, and we had a conversation with Todd McGee about that. And we actually heard about David Meyer's team that's been put together. A lot of ex-FBI agents on that team. So hopefully there will be some movement soon in that case. All right, let's play out and finish up with the clip here from Microdots.
As the sky was lightening, Canton PD convened back to the crime scene to begin the first search. Notice there's only a few inches of snow on the ground.
Thank you, Sue.
We see here that the weather conditions were initially favorable, though they began to deteriorate as the storm intensified throughout the day. 2 vehicles parked in the driveway appear to have not moved in a few hours, including Brian Albert's Ford Edge, which coincidentally itself is not blocked in, and by definition is the last vehicle to have moved into place. The third is the McCabe's 2020 Yukon XL, which Matt McCabe had just arrived in only minutes ago. The rest of the family and Brian Higgins will be here shortly after the police leave. Julie Albert will arrive soon to leave donuts and coffee inside of a car for Brian Jr. An obvious excuse manufactured as the reason she came to the home, to deny knowledge that John was dead at 4:55 a.m., as she told police. We see Canton Officer Michael Lank exit his 2015 Toyota Tacoma pickup and walk towards the crime scene. He is a childhood friend of the Alberts and has helped them out before.
I want to apologize the other day. I was describing this video and I kept saying snowblower because they're blowing snow, but it's a leaf blower that they used. And this is where I go back and I talk about, and I want people to go watch this. Go watch the OJ 4-part series on Netflix. And they talk about evidence collection in there. How could the defense attack this case? Clearly, I mean, there was fucking blood all over the place. OJ's blood mixed in at the crime scene. There was blood from Nicole Brown Simpson, and now his name just slipped my Goldman, Ron Goldman's blood mixed in at OJ Simpson's house. And they said, well, how can we attack this case? What can we do? And then they went back and looked at thousands of hours of video of the media shooting all this evidence collection. And they went in and they said, did you wear gloves? Was it a proper procedure? And they were just crushing the police. And I want to see this happen. Thank you, Ron Goldman. Yes. And I want to see this happen with the defense team this time around. Attack the way they collected the evidence. Show that to the jury. Make it a point. The contamination of the blood inside those Solo cups, the Stop and Shop bag, they leaf blowed the scene, and then bring up proper policy and procedure manuals if you have to. Have a policy and procedure expert on the stand to explain all of this to the jury and how tainted all of this evidence is. The evidence. That's what I would do. Attack it that way. Then talk about why 3 days. 3 days did the potential murder weapon get towed back to Canton PD and sat in that Sally Port before the Mass State Police crime team showed up to start processing that vehicle. And you even heard it the other day on my show. If you didn't watch, go back and watch it. The one with Todd McGee, I think it was 2 nights ago. He said, if I was in charge of that investigation, the car would have been picked up and brought to the nearest Mass State Police facility where we could start processing that vehicle immediately. Those were words out of Todd McGee's mouth. All right, let's play.
We grabbed some crime scene tape. I wrapped it around by the flagpole tree and cruiser. It was hard to keep up just because the wind was blowing at such a good rate.
The top wind speed during the morning search was 28 miles per hour. Considered a strong breeze by the National Weather Service. This video was captured during the search, and the conditions were neither too windy nor too snowy to hang yellow tape, which is designed to withstand various types of extreme weather, especially high wind and moisture. With the addition of one object, the scene could have been easily secured. But Brian didn't want any attention.
Gonna turn this down for a second so I don't get whacked with sound bites. So here we go. Here's the evidence. Collection of the evidence.
Lucky's plow passes by once again, providing us with an excellent perspective to assess the height of his towering truck.
And it's up high.
is raised.
Despite plenty of daylight, minimal snow accumulation, and only a strong breeze, the officers located exactly 0 pieces of shattered taillight glass.
Fantastic.
Canton PD's work is complete. Together, they drive back to the police station with 6 solo cups containing blood and the broken cocktail glass, packed into 2 unsealed brown paper shopping bags. Leaving the crime scene unsecured, free for anyone to contaminate it, like nothing ever happened. Meanwhile, all the main players are returning to the home for an emergency family meeting. The Canton police are relieved of their duties as the Massachusetts State Police assume jurisdiction over the case. Inside the Alberts kitchen, Jen tells them everything that's transpired so far, then shares an idea.
When she first called me, we were driving in the car. We were at John's house. It was like, did I hit him? Could I have hit him? Is he dead? Is he dead? I have a cracked taillight. There was a crack in it.
This is good. No, it's better than good. It's perfect. But there has to be a direct physical link to Karen for it to be cut and dry.
Yeah.
Or else they may suspect us. We need to find the SUV and get it back to the Sallyport before the state police search. I'll call him back now.
Yes, yes, yes. The great and most brilliant Micro Dots. All right, people. I think that's going to end this for tonight. We had a little bit of a profile on Hank the Spank Brennan, and I think we did a good job. We found a lot of the irony in all of the things that he previously said in his cases that just make it almost laughable here in the Karen Reed case. So listen, I appreciate everybody being here this evening. If you're first time over here, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And anybody in this room, if you can just turn on your bell notifications, so when I go live, you will know when I go live. And I appreciate that. And we'll have some shows set up here pretty soon. I think I might do a show on Sunday night where I take some calls for the first, well, not for the first time. I just haven't done it in a very, very long time. So maybe we'll do that on Sunday evening. I don't know. I think that's it. Oh, Saturday night, make sure to watch Turtle Boy. He's going to have a juror on from the first Karen Reed trial. I'm sure there's going to be over 10,000 people watching that. And I know I will be tuning in as well. Just trying to think here. YouTube deleted my subscription to you. So subscriptions don't get deleted if you don't re-up, or you can always just re-up. Just right at the bottom of the chat, it will say join, and you can hit the subscription. It just automatically cuts off. So if you were gifted one, after a month it would be cut off. Or if you didn't re-up, because I know sometimes with my subscriptions to channels, it asks me if I want to re-up, and I sometimes have to just reapply everything and do that. So that's how that works. So yeah, we're gonna head out, and I will have some memberships. I was gonna say, I don't know. Probably going to be back on Sunday night. I'm going to take probably the next 2 days off to rest my voice because I've done a lot of shows this week, and still can't get rid of this congestion. Still there, still in my sinuses. I've been this for almost 5 weeks. 5 weeks been stuck like this, and I just can't get rid of it. I have this frog in my throat and it sucks, but it is what it is. Let's see. Gray Space says YouTube has been unsubscribing people randomly lately. Interesting. Very, very interesting. Law Fiero checking in. Hey, you're on vacation. You're not supposed to be here. You should be. I saw your photo today. You were in the Magic Kingdom. Listen, I've done everything. I have done everything. It will not go away. Sudafed I can't take. I have high blood pressure, so can't take Sudafed. Law Fiero says, I'm loving the frog, Brian. Hey, I got to have you back on the channel soon. I know you have some scheduled shows coming up this week, but maybe in the next week after that, we can do something. I'd like to get you up on a panel with Todd McGee. I think that would be great. So I think the three of us, or maybe we can grab a couple other YouTubers like Mike, Young Jerks, Mazza. I think it'll be a really good time. I have literally tried everything. Cipracol I can't take as well. I can't take it. I can't take it. I can't take it. I have a very sensitive system. I'm fighting. It's weird. I'm on medication for blood pressure, and I think they're going to have to up my dose because my blood pressure is really bad lately, and I don't know why. But I have high blood pressure that runs in my family, and unfortunately, when you turn the old 40, it kicked in. So that's why I'm here. Ivermectin, yeah, I've heard about it. I've tried everything. Yeah, I know Tom used that. I can't get rid of it. I can't get rid of it. Loss says, yeah, you have no voice, and the cat has the McAlbert's tongue. That's funny. I don't know. I can't get rid of it. I mean, I've gone through thousands of cough drops, and I went on a round of antibiotics. I'm supposed to have because I have my root canals. I have to sit on Monday for 3 hours and start my preparation for my crowns. That's very expensive. That's gonna be like $3,000 check when I go into the dentist on Monday. Awesome. I don't drink. Everybody keeps saying this. I don't drink, so I can't do that. Neti Pot, I've tried it. I've tried everything. Won't work. Won't work. Let's see. Ann said I got COVID and I had to come off my blood pressure meds because it felt very low. So Beck says, go tanning. Seriously, not to tan. It's just for the UV, especially if you have red light therapy place available. Well, maybe we'll try that. Yeah, I don't drink at all. Not even a drop of alcohol enters his body. Just doesn't happen. Yeah, I know what a neti pot is. I've done them before. I tried everything. I have tried everything. Zicam nose spray. Maybe I'll look into that. Zcam or Zicam. Sounds annoying, but truly tanning. Steam helps. Yeah. Tried everything. I can't get rid of this frog. Here we go with the cough. I have that stupid thing too. Still have bronchitis. UV light has helped me a lot. Yeah, maybe we'll try a tanning session. All right. Yeah, just email me. Send it to me. Let me check my Cash Apps and Vemos and see if we have anything here, because I might have missed something throughout the show. Let me check Cash Apps. Oh. No Cash Appies. Let me check Venmo. Any Vemos? No Vemos. No problem. It is what it is. Okay. I am going to head out here. I appreciate everybody. Like I said, I have some shows lining up with Todd McGee. I know he'll be coming back and doing something. I know Nan will be back at some point. And that's it. We had a very in-depth profile on Hanky Spanky Brennan tonight. All right, everybody, I'm going to hit the outro. Thank you all so much for being here. Again, we're coming up on let's wait how about we just wait 45 seconds and try to get 2 hours on the nose, right? Why spoil a good thing? Why spoil a good thing? Thank you. Hit the like button on the way out. I appreciate it. I'm trying to feel better. Goodbye, OnlyFan. Thank you. Got another 20 seconds. And then we're going to hit the outro. Constantly miss your lives. It's a bummer. Take care. Thank you so much. Watch it on the replay. Give it some replay love. All right, everybody. Here we go. Have a good night. Bye.